Hi, Francis, Stephen, John. It's Erica here in London. I just wanted to say a collection of memories and thoughts that I have about Les, um, just in loving memory. Here they go. Um, so even just the whole way he was born, that whole story. It's beautiful. Um, it's so special. He was special from the minute he was born, and I've always really admired how he was involved with the Deaf Society his entire life, and I guess I've always thought that was really noble and just a really beautiful part of his own personal story. Um, I have to also just put in the fact that he babysat Rex Murphy. That's like heavyweight. That's like major. I sometimes brag about that. As in, like, there's a lot of things I brag about him. I'll be going through them. But that one, I like to throw that card around. Um, but bringing it back up to when our families reconnected, because my sister Jennifer was in Mrs. Pike's class when she was in grade three, and I was 5 years old in kindergarten five. Um, it's also just so special that it wasn't just sort of like a one off meeting, like, oh, what have you been doing for the past 35 years? Because my dad and Les were very young, if you think about it, when they knew each other. And then Les went off to the Korean War, and, they went off and did their lives. But that meeting was like the beginning of the rest of our lives. Our families have been intertwined ever since. And what a beautiful, beautiful thing it has been. And so I guess the way I would describe Les is hilarious, in a word, hilarious. Or also the definition of a card. Like, oh boy, he's some card, or some hard case. He is a person that I would gravitate to in any kind of social setting. I just basically always thought that he was kind of the craziest, funniest person in the room. Is like, as a child, that's sort of how I thought of him. And then juxtaposed against that, I also remember, like, I can kind of see the day in my mind's eye, when my mom, we were going to be, I guess, entertaining the Pikes, and my mom had bought groceries, and she had groceries for me to run downstairs to put in the downstairs basement, and there was non-alcoholic beers, this was the 80s, and this is something that didn't really exist in my household. And I was like, who is this for? And then my mom explained that they were for Les. And also, in a child's mind, like, I watched a lot of TV, and so it's just tropes in television. So you sort of think the craziest person in the room is also the drunkest person in the room or something. And it's like all these sort of Newfoundland things, like, oh, he's a good Newfoundlander, he'll have a beer, like those kind of things. And so I was like, what? That person, like that hilarious, funnest person to be around, he doesn't drink. He's sober. Like that. And I remember, and then my mom told me the whole reason why he doesn't drink and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, wow. Whoa. It was the first time I had come across an adult who didn't drink, but also one who was just, I thought, definitely, if not the funnest, one of the funnest people at the party for sure, hands down. And, and so in my own life, I look back at that, and I have, so this is another reason why I brag about him, because, I mean, this is more really why I brag about him, because subconsciously and subliminally, that meant a lot as a child, because little did I know that 20 years later, I was going to have a neurological condition come hit me in the face, and I wasn't going to be able to be a good Newfoundlander anymore and enjoy alcohol. And so to have that role model of like, you can still have this really fun personality and also be not drinking alcohol was a really, really important role model for me. And I see that. I've looked back on that a lot and really, really value that about him. So I wouldn't be able to do this without mentioning, it's making me laugh before I've even said it, the road trip to Newfoundland that Les and Francis, Harold, Esther, and Erica took. So Les and Francis were in their car, and then my parents and I were in ours. So this was also the first time I was ever going to Newfoundland without any of my siblings. My entire life, it was always me and my whole family. But my older siblings were all older and were staying back with their partners now. And so I was still too young and was still going with my parents. So it was like, when you're the youngest, you go from feeling like you're part of this big family to all of a sudden feeling like, oh, am I an only child kind of thing? Like it feels a little odd. And that really got taken away immediately because I was doing a tandem car ride, if you will, with the greatest couple, arguably. And like we didn't have cell phones back in those days. So in order to even just communicate, the way I remember it is that Francis and Les were leading, we were following, and so whenever Les would pull off, we knew just to follow. It worked in such harmony, it worked so well. And then when we'd pull off at a rest stop, then Francis would open the door and say to the clerk, I apologize in advance, I am really sorry for this. And then Harold and Les would walk in together, and basically a hurricane of hilarity would just ensue. And I feel like my mom and Francis and I were just stand by the waysides, like crying our eyes out with laughter. And it was, yeah, it is one of those things that I will treasure for the rest of my life. It was one of the funnest experiences. And I also feel like maybe some of that has rubbed off on me, because even the way like, you know, I felt like Les was having a heart-to-heart with the sales clerk about some of the most mundane little items. Like he'd find the weirdest things on the shelves and pull them off the shelf and be like, now tell me about that. And get the person talking and oh yeah. And it was only when I was trying to think of what I would say that I realized maybe I do some of that. And is that all from that trip? Did that rub off on me like that? And maybe it did. Anyways, I value it so much. And okay, so the last memory is like about 10 or 12 or 13 years later. I was living over here, and one of my best friends had been away to university and stuff, and then was back in Ottawa, and so she picked up a job working at Oh So Good. So now the way I remember this is that I believe it's the wife of Francis's nephew owned Oh So Good, but I could be wrong. My best friend is from Nova Scotia. Anyways, she was working there, and she said that my dad would come in all the time with his friend, and they were both hilarious, and she would serve them all the time. And she also was exchanging free cake to them in exchange that they tell me that she was saying hello because I was all the way over here. And then every time her and I would touch base, like every so often, she would say, "So, I gave them free cake again. Did they ever translate that hello?" And never, not once, did that hello get back to me. So I'm not holding Les accountable. It was never really his responsibility, but I am holding my dad accountable for that. But I know that they were being pretty hilarious in that situation, and I wasn't even there. So I just really want to say my deepest condolences. I am. I can't imagine what you're going through. But I can say that I feel truly, truly blessed that my life and that my family's life was graced by Les's. So I wish you all the best throughout this difficult time, and just that you know that so many people are thinking of you and sending you prayers and love, and also sharing in the joy of his life, because his life was something that gave out so much joy to so many people. It makes me laugh right now, even just thinking about it. So all my love. Bye.